At one point, Al-Qaeda came close to killing you. Like you were shot 8 times.
Yeah.
You have your skull. Walk me through what happened. I was fascinated by the vest that you got. I want to talk about the details of the vest. How much would it weigh?
I mean, fully loaded, anywhere from 25 to 30 pounds.
If you get a bullet from right where you're sitting, will this protect me?
I mean, if it was a handgun, 100%.
And sniper can get through this?
He'd probably aim for your head.
Jason Redman, retired US Navy SEAL lieutenant. He served across combat deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan, leading elite special operations teams in some of the world's most dangerous environments.
Tell me about your time in Afghanistan.
We were going after a senior Al-Qaeda leader, the first target we thought he was going to be in, and no one was there. And then we saw some activity on another building about 150 yards away. I took my team and we moved on that building, and we were moving through some really thick vegetation. I was out front, and I walked into an ambush. 2 machine guns turned on me, and that's when the machine gun caught me across the body armor, and it struck me in the arm. So I continued to try and shoot, and I caught a machine gun round. It hit me right in front of the ear and traveled through my face and exited my nose and blew out my cheekbone. It vaporized the orbital floor, broke the bones above my eye, broke the head of my jaw, and shattered my jaw.
So what motivates you to join Navy SEAL?
I was told it was the toughest training in the military, and there was something inside me that said that's what I wanted to do.
Tell me about the training.
It's designed to break you mentally. It culminates with a pretty legendary week of training.
And what's this? First of all, I'm grateful that you took out time to actually do this conversation.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be sitting right next to you, especially because of the kind of strength and inspiration that you have shown to people just by being an example. I think people like me and millions like me can use just bits of your world and your mindset into our world and make our lives better. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for coming here.
Yeah, my honor. Thank you.
Okay. So first, tell me if somebody's watching you for the first time. Okay. And for that 1% people who have no clue who you are, what you do, where you come from, how would you introduce yourself to them?
I would say that I am an average, everyday human, no different than many of them. I wasn't born into money or anything like that, but I did come from a family who believed in our country and patriotism and service. Everybody in my family had served. So I grew up with a love of our country and a love of our military and an appreciation for what I like to call the protector community, law enforcement, our police, fire, military. And as a young boy, that's what I really aspired to do. And I learned about my grandfather was a decorated pilot in World War II. And so originally I wanted to be a pilot. I think like many of us, pop culture sometimes drives the things we do. And the movie Top Gun, I was 11 when Top Gun came out, and my grandfather was a pilot. So I was like, I want to be a pilot. But later I learned about special operations, special forces, warriors, and that really intrigued me. I don't think I'm the average person. I think in movies, most special operations people or ideas they have are like these great big muscle-bound, rocks. And, I'm not that big a guy. And I don't think anybody in my high school when I was younger, if they had said, hey, he's going to go become a Navy SEAL, they would have laughed. But that's what I wanted to do. And I set my sights on it and went after that. So that's why I say I'm really no different than anyone that's out there. I'm a young man or a human that had a dream. And I set my sights on that dream and I went after that dream. And don't get me wrong, it was hard. SEAL training is brutally hard. But I focused on that dream and I went after it. And so I would say, young man, dreamer, warrior, leader, failure. And I think that's an important thing because all of us will fail in this life. So often when you read resumes of people or you read their background, very rarely do people, hand you like, hey, these are my successes, but here's all my failures too. For the most part, as humans, we only focus on our successes, but we learn the most out of our failures.
Yeah.
And our failures really, they either destroy us or they define us, and we grow from that. And my failures help me to grow to become the better version of myself. That's why my book, The Trident, is called The Forging and Reforging. It was the reforging after I messed up and I broke and I made mistakes that I had to grow up. And I think all humans go through this journey, some on a larger scale than others. But so a failure, and then grew into a leader, became respected, saw combat and encountered more adversity. And learned a lot about that. I mean, I saw combat in Iraq and Afghanistan, so I got to see the world. I got to see poverty. I got to see extreme violence. So anyways, so warrior, leader, failure, redeemed, father, husband, and entrepreneur now. Author, entrepreneur. So there you go. That's me in a nutshell.
Let's break it down. Let's break every part of it. So first you said Navy SEAL. Okay. Tell me in simple words, what motivates you to join Navy SEAL? You could be anything in the world. You could be an entrepreneur. You could be working somewhere. America has a typical American dream, which is being sold to everybody. And you have a real shot and opportunity to actually go make a difference. Plus, your country is not at the border wars with anyone, right? So it's not even like in countries like, let's say, India, it's very natural if you're born around the border because you've seen so much atrocities around you that you want to serve and protect your country and you want to go join the army, you want to do it. In America, it doesn't happen like that. So you could be anything in the world and you have fair shot and opportunity to become someone, probably a millionaire, multi-millionaire, I don't know what. Why do you join Navy SEAL, Army?
Well, no different. I mean, you said it. Yes, we may not have border wars where individuals that live down there are driven to serve, but I think there's a strong sense of service. Service ties back to the foundation of America. I mean, it's what we were talking about earlier with George Washington. I mean, this country was founded out of war. And in a belief in freedom. And that resonates strongly. That fabric of patriotism and freedom is such a strong fabric of America and sacrifice. Now, depending on how you were raised, some families, and I think in the last probably 30, 40 years, that's not as popular. And that's sad to me. Because I believe that foundation of this idea of fighting for your freedom is a very powerful thing. And this idea of freedom, and it is born out of a willingness to fight. So if you were raised that way, which I was born in 1975. So that was only 30 years after World War II. That was very fresh in the minds of my parents and my grandparents. So my both grandfathers fought in World War II. So as a young man, I was raised on these stories.
But then when you went to the army, you opted to become Navy SEAL.
I did.
Right. That training is hard. It just can't be done because you aspire to be into the army and you watch G.I. Joe and you wanted to actually be in there, right? That must be brutal. So
it is, I mean, it is considered the hardest training in the entire United States military. We have a 80% attrition rate. So only 2 out of 10 people that start training and graduate.
So tell me about the training routine, entire routine, like from day one to how many phases is the training? What goes on? What's the hardest part?
Yeah, it's the training is 7 months for just the first part, just to qualify. And it's broken into 3 phases. And the first phase is really just, it's designed to break you mentally. There's lots of physical evolutions, and you, most of the time, you're wet and coated in sand for everything you do. So you're constantly chafing sores on your body, and You're freezing cold all the time because the water in California where training occurs is very cold. And you're constantly in that water until you're shaking, and then you'll go do different evolutions, and then they put you back in the water, and it's just a constant cycle of that. So it breaks you down mentally.
Okay.
But at the same time, you still have to perform. So they teach you that even though you're uncomfortable, even though you're in pain, you still have to focus and accomplish the task at hand. And so you learn a lot about yourself. So for me, why did I want to do that? I was told it was the toughest training in the military. And there was something inside me that said, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to accomplish that.
Interesting.
And I think I was fortunate enough to have, I think there's a genetic side of that. I think somewhere in my DNA, I think there's two things that make special operations people, whether they're SEALs or Army Rangers or Green Berets. You guys have the, is it the
Marcos, Parasef.
Yes, absolutely. So it would be the same for them. It is the ability to endure pain and discomfort for long periods of time, more than the average person. And it's the ability to process information very quickly in chaos. Meaning if you're in a gunfight or things are happening, you are able to ignore the fact that, wow, I could die any moment, and you're still able to process information and execute. And some people can't do that. Some people just shut down in the middle of chaos, and they're not able to task organize and compartmentalize their mind. And I think those two things are what make special operations forces, because we'll have individuals who are physically strong enough to make it through SEAL training, but then when they actually get to the next phase, where now we're starting to do more high-speed shooting and complicated things, and they end up leaving because of that fact. They can't process information in chaos.
True.
So, but anyway, so going back, so the first phase of training, that's what it's about. It culminates with a pretty legendary week of training called Hell Week. And Hell Week is notorious. It's considered probably the hardest week of training in the U.S. military. And you're basically, you're not allowed to sleep for a week. You're constantly moving. If you were wet and sandy, so let's just say in regular SEAL training, you're wet and sandy like 60% of the time. In Hell Week, you're wet and sandy 95% of the time. You're almost never dry.
What happens to the entire week? Tell me, like, step by step. The Hell Week.
It starts with something called Breakout, where it simulates combat. It just simulates there's gunfire and explosions and just chaos. And then the week goes from there, and there's just you're always we have these rubber boats. You're in a boat crew, and those rubber boats, everywhere you go, you're carrying them on your head. Those boats weigh probably 250, 300 pounds dry. But because you're constantly in the water and on the beach, they get filled with sand. So they probably end up weighing 400 pounds or so. And the sand gets in between your head and the bottom of the boat. So you have a sore on top of your head, usually within a couple of days. Your neck is aching because you carry it everywhere. We estimate that the average student covers 200 miles during Hell Week. So you're always either walking or running with that boat. You're doing swim evolutions. You're doing an evolution that we call surf torture, where they put you in the water. If you think of a beach, the beach has a little bit of a gradient, and the waves crash onto, but the sand line goes down. So what they do is the whole class has to lock arms, and you walk out into the ocean till you're at about knee level. The water's up to your knees, and then everybody turns around, and then you sit down, and then they have you lay down. So the waves are crashing over your head, and you lay in the water, anywhere from 50 to 60 degrees until you become hypothermic. And then they pull you out and they check everybody to make sure, they have a doctor and medical staff there, and they make sure that no one is, at the point they're going to die. But then they make you go do physical things to try and warm you up. But then they have you, and you'll do that all through Hell Week.
Again and again and again.
Again and again and again. Yep. So you're either carrying the boat around on top of your head where your neck hurts and your body hurts, or you're laying in the ocean freezing to death. So you're all week long, you're shivering so hard that the muscles like lock up in your back and in your legs. And on top of that, then you have running evolutions, you have classroom evolutions, you have obstacle courses, you have physical training, and it doesn't stop because you don't sleep.
Yeah.
You know,
How much do you sleep in a day?
The average student will only get 3 hours of sleep on average for the entire week. That's it.
For the entire week?
The entire week. You don't sleep. And when you do finally get to sleep, too, and it's not like they let you go lay in a bed, you're like laying on the ground. And your body's so sleep deprived, you'll instantly go into REM and deep sleep. And then they'll wake you up like only 20 minutes later. And it's so painful because it's like you're unconscious. And they're screaming at you to get up and go. And you're trying to figure things out. So it's just chaos. It's chaos and it's painful. By the end of the week, by 3 or 4 days in, so 96 hours, by Wednesday or Thursday, you're starting to hallucinate. I remember I was hearing voices. I was seeing things that weren't there. Like I remember we were rowing our boat in the middle of the ocean and I was seeing fences. I kept trying to steer the boat away because I thought we were going to hit this fence in the middle of the ocean. I remember on Friday, you know, getting to the last day, you would start to, they call them micro sleeps. You're so tired and your body's so sleep deprived, it doesn't matter what you're doing, your body will go into like instant sleep. So I was running under the boat. And I remember like we were running by the compound where the SEAL training compound is. And I was asleep. When I woke up, we were like a mile down the beach. So I literally my body shut down, my brain shut down. So it's kind of crazy. But what it's teaching you, and this is, everyone in SEAL training goes back to Hell Week. I think about that the night I was wounded. It teaches you to hang on and keep pushing through pain and discomfort, that your body can do 10 times more than what your brain tells you. Your brain will tell you have to stop. You can't keep going. Yeah. It'll tell, you know, but the reality is your body can keep going. You just have to endure.
Does it ever get to a point where like, I'm not doing it anymore?
Oh yeah. I thought that night on Thursday night at Hell Week.
Yeah.
I think I joke with people that I've met guys who say, I never thought about quitting. And I'm like, you're a liar. I don't believe that. You know, everyone hits a breaking point. And the difference is they choose not to. You know, they hit a point where they're like, I don't think I can do this anymore. And then they're like, okay, no, I need to stay the course.
Yeah.
Other people, they hit that point. As a matter of fact, the majority of people hit that point and they quit.
True. You have a concept in SEALs, which is called violence of action. What is that?
Violence of action is in combat or in a fight, it's a flurry of violent activity that overwhelms your opponent.
Like?
In a gunfight, it's a lot of firepower. It is just massive amount of machine gun fire, massive amount of explosions, massive amount of very targeted shooting. So the enemy is absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of firepower and explosions that just got unleashed on them. And we train to be able to do this, you only have so much bullets and bombs that you can carry. Now, you know, you can call in airstrikes and things like that, but it is a very concentrated amount of massive violence in a small period of time. It'd be no different in a fight where you unleash just as much damage as possible in such a short period of time that your opponent is totally overwhelmed.
But then in the real combat situation, when you're doing this, usually the accuracy goes from probably 90% in training to real life, probably 40, 50%, right? Because the adrenaline and everything in your body is so high. When your accuracy is not that great and everything is happening, how do you perform, or how do you actually are able to do the violence of action very accurately?
I would say that that's not the case for us. I'd say we train to such a high level. We train so hard in most special operations unit, and I know this is true in the SEAL teams, that we are prepared for combat. We try to simulate the chaos of combat as closely as possible, so much so that it's not uncommon, at least once a year, someone will die in training. You know, and we never want that. We try to put risk management procedures in place, but we push our guys so hard so that they're prepared, so that their mind is prepared for the chaos of combat, so that we're able to execute and shoot and move and think and do the things that need to be done in the midst of gunfire and explosions and all the chaos of combat. So I would say regular troops, that may be true. And some of that is just limited. They don't have both the resources or the training or the experience level to be able to train at that level. So yes, I would probably say until they become very combat proven, there is a degradation. Whereas I think the SEAL teams are a unique group, and many other, I would equate our Rangers and Green Berets on the same level, that we train to a level so that even when we go into combat, I mean, maybe in training we're operating at 95%, and in combat, if you've never been in combat, maybe it dips to 85. But by the time you, very quickly, once you've been through several combat missions, you're right back up at 95%.
But isn't it more difficult mentally, no matter how hard you train? When you're training, you're in a facility where you know that there's backup, there's going to be doctors, there's going to be things which is more controlled in an environment, versus when you're in, let's say, Afghanistan, and you're in Afghanistan in middle of nowhere. I don't think it would be same mentally.
I don't, yeah, I know it's hard to wrap your head around that, but it is the same. It's the same just because of the way we train. You don't compartmentalize your mind to say, hey, this is a different environment. You train for that environment. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world or what you're doing. We train and you build your mindset. And this is where compartmentalization, where you have the ability. Before I went into combat, you know, I would mentally prepare myself all the way up to the final thing, which was to, usually I watched a video of my wife and kids, and then that was it. And I didn't think about them again. And I resigned the fact that, hey, this may be the last mission I ever go on. I may die on this mission, and okay. And I think if you can accept that, then you're able to execute. And not only that, I think a lot of people, if you haven't trained to that level, your thought would be, well, what if I die, or what if I'm injured?
Yeah.
But if you're training to the level where you're like, I'm going to crush anything in my path, and even if we encounter adversity, we're still trained to continue to drive forward and crush and to deliver and execute, regardless of the situation. We train for it. We train for injured guys. We train for wounded guys. We train for guys being killed. We train for only having a few. We train for our leadership being eliminated. And we train guys to step up and continue to lead and continue the attack and continue to press and continue to fight. So that when it happens in real life, guys are able to operate at the highest level. That's an elite mindset. How do you train yourself to that level? You can do it in life.
Yeah.
It's just a belief and a commitment to do it regardless. Adversity is common. And, you know, whether it's combat or whether it's the real world, you know, that's why I often talk about, you know, how do you become the elite version of you? What you described, I often tell people, if you look at yourself in the different, let's break your life into three buckets. You're the physical you, so your physical abilities, the personal you, relationships, and the professional you. And if you push to the elite level in all of those areas, for you, here's the thing, you can't look at me and you can't look at other people. Only you can get to that elite level.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, if you accept good instead of elite in any of those areas, you will always slip to the lowest level you're willing to accept in your life. So if your mindset is in training, oh, well, I'm okay because I'm in training, that's an average mindset.
True.
And you'll have an average mindset on the battlefield. If you place yourself into, this is chaos and hell, and we do everything in our power to simulate that. Don't get me wrong. I was a SEAL training instructor for a while. We did everything in our power to make it as chaotic and violent and scary and overwhelming as possible. We wanted to simulate combat as closely as we could, minus shooting guys. Obviously, we can't shoot people in training, but if we could, we would do everything in our power to try and get it as close as possible to that, because that's combat. We want to simulate combat. We want to simulate the environment you're in. And if you have that mindset, then the degradation that you talked about is minimal.
What's easier for you, battlefield or the training?
Oftentimes, training was much more difficult because most of the time, battlefield, it's not like the movies. It's not like every single day you go out, it's like this massive gunfight and chaos and people are being shot. Those are, I don't know, 1 in 20.
Okay.
Most of the time. And for special operations, we do things to try and, we do things to try and what we call prep the battlefield. So we try and stack the deck in our favor. So most of the time, if we were taking down a target or going after a bad guy, oftentimes we were already on top of them before they ever knew we were even there. And oftentimes a shot was not a single bullet was ever fired. And we would capture people and take them with us, and there was never a gunfight or anything. Oftentimes, so training wasn't like that.
Yeah.
Training was designed to be chaos.
Yeah.
So I would say frequently combat was easier than training because we wanted training to be as hard as possible.
You said you were a trainer as well for a while.
Yes.
You were a trainer. What was the scariest thing you trained your boys for?
We would do live fire shooting in the woods at night, where individuals are in the woods, it's dark, and you're all shooting. I mean, this was live fire, so you would be offset, and we've killed people. People have been shot doing this training, not while I was doing it, but it's happened before. And that's when you're coordinating that, a split second makes a difference. If the guys aren't paying attention or they lose someone in the darkness and you have shooting lanes, so even though it's all chaos and everybody's spread out, theoretically, wherever that line is, there's shooting lanes. But if you cross that lane, if somewhere in the darkness, so this is where it's on the instructor to be watching what's happening, and for them to be able to train to that and to find the balance where we want it as close to realistic as possible, but okay, hey, we need to stop it because someone's going to get shot or killed. And so that's hairy. That's your heart's pounding in your chest
because you can't see anything.
It's
pitch dark, or you're wearing the night glasses.
So we did it both. We did it without night vision goggles, and we did it with night vision goggles. So with night vision goggles, it's obviously easier, and the technology has gotten better. I mean, when I was younger, originally we didn't even have night vision goggles, and then that tech came along.
Yeah.
But we run evolutions where anyways, that's probably one of the more dangerous. And yeah, you
can explain. You were saying something. Go ahead.
No, it was just a different scenario. Like blue on blue is a scary scenario, which what that means is friendly forces are shooting back at each other and individuals have been killed in combat. Friendly fire, they call it. So most units would not train for that because they would just tell guys, hey, you got to be aware of this. We actually try and create real world blue on blue situations and know it's coming. And as instructors, you're having to watch it to train guys to understand like this can happen in combat and you need to be ready for it and hopefully not shoot each other.
Insane. That's insane. What do you think? Have you
is it insane or is it training? I mean, look at the success of American Special Operations Forces. Is it insane or is it strategic and calculated training? And it works. We've proven it on the battlefield for almost 20 years. There's no doubt in my mind that right now the American military is probably the most capable military in the world. Coming off 20 years of warfare in 9/11, and we've also proven it, with the recent operations we did in Venezuela and Iran. It doesn't mean you're invincible. I mean, combat is the great chaos.
What do you think? What makes you different? Like Navy SEAL, what's one thing which make Navy SEALs different? Have you worked with other special forces?
I have.
You have, right? Which all special forces you worked with?
I've worked with within the American military, obviously our Green Berets and Rangers. Within other countries, I work with many of our South American Special Operations Forces. I work with our British SAS forces and SBS forces. I worked with the German Kampfschwimmers and their special operations units. I work with the Canadian Special Operations units, Polish, the New Zealand Special Operations.
Who would be the most lethal?
Us.
Sure.
You know,
Apart from you,
no, man.
who comes close second? Let's just put it that way.
I would say that a lot of your European countries are they've built very successful special operations
Like
forces.
which one?
The British SAS are formidable. They're phenomenal. The French with their combat swimming. I mean, a lot of these units. But I think the difference, I think many of us were probably on a level playing field, meaning we were pretty comparable up until 9/11. But when 9/11 happened, I mean, the SEAL teams alone probably conducted over 10,000 missions over the 20 years of combat. So and nothing can teach. I don't care what level of training you can imagine or create. Nothing duplicates combat. So no different in life.
Yeah.
There's no amount of education. There's no amount of training or books you can read. There's no amount of virtual reality you can do that simulates real world experience, to be able to think and execute based on real things that are happening around you, whether that's in business, whether that's in sports, or whether that's in combat.
True. But you said that, let's say you're the best ones, but have you ever considered a thought which a lot of other special forces talk about, American forces, is if they take away your technology, it'll be very difficult for you to survive. Do you think so?
No, I don't think so.
Because a lot of other countries where they have limited technology, limited resources, they have to probably walk for like kilometers and kilometers and miles, which probably an American Navy SEAL doesn't have to, because you have a lot of good support from the airspace stuff.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's kind of curious, that thought process, because yeah, there were people that thought that about, once again, it's training. We look at every aspect of the world and we train to it. So for Afghanistan, the Taliban are formidable fighters. You know, their ability to navigate in some of the roughest terrain on the planet in the Hindu Kush, the mountains there. But our guys trained to that. So we were able to execute and oftentimes outmaneuver them. That had nothing to do with aircraft. That had nothing to do with technology. That had to do with physical toughness and condition.